Hello everyone and thank you for watching Edupedia World videos. Today in this session, we'll try to introduce the subject of accounting. Following are the learning goals for us today, which include types of human activities, historical perspective of accounting, and finally defining the concept of accounting. The activities that any human being performs on the face of the earth can be categorized under two categories, that is financial activities, or which we typically term as economic activities, and non-financial activities or non-economical activities. First, financial or economic activities. We know that man always keeps himself engaged in some kind of activity to satisfy his needs and wants. All human activities may be broadly divided as we just categorize them, that's economic and non-economic. The work of a farmer, teacher, doctor, trader, etc. are some examples of economic or financial activities. They are primarily concerned with the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. Economic activities are undertaken to earn one's living and for the production of wealth. In conclusion, we can say that the activities which we term as economic or financial activities are those activities which can be typically expressed in terms of money, that's which are expressible in terms of money, and once we do those activities we expect certain reward for us in terms of money. Now coming to non-financial activities, people also undertake a number of activities for mental satisfaction. They engage in charitable work, practice religion, undertake recreational activities, and also do many things out of love for others or out of patriotic feelings. These activities are known as non-economic activities or non-financial activities. These activities are undertaken not for any material reward or gain but for one's happiness, pleasure, or satisfaction, which cannot be measured in terms of money or which is not expressible in terms of money. Having discussed and understood the concept of the human activities, now it becomes important in our session to trace the historical origin of the subject of accounting. Accounting is as old as money itself. However, the act of accounting was not as developed as it is today, because in the early stage of civilization, the number of transactions to be recorded were so small that each businessman was able to record and check for himself all his transactions. The subject of accounting finds its mention in the ancient books. If we see and analyze the ancient history of India, we may find that the subject of accounting was practiced in India 23 centuries ago, as is clear from the book named Arthashastra, written by Kautilya, King Chandragupta's minister. This book not only relates to politics, not only talks about politics and economics, but also explains the art of proper keeping of record in the books of accounts. The holy book of Muslims also mentions about the record keeping. In it, in the chapter 2 and verse 282, it's mentioned that whenever you transact between yourself, do keep record of the things. So overall, record keeping is of no recent origin but dates back to human history. The third point, accounting is required to account for monetary aspect. So in nutshell, we can say and conclude that any business or non-business entity requires money and other economic resources. Accounting is used or required to account for these resources. In other words, we can say wherever money is involved, accounting is required to account for the same. Now, having understood the historical perspective of accounting and its origin, now we'll try to understand the concept of accounting. The definition that we can see on the screen is a definition that has been given by one of the reputed institutes in the USA, which we term as the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. It says accounting is the art of recording, classifying, and summarizing in a significant manner, and in terms of money, transactions, and events, which are in part at least of a financial character, and interpreting the results thereof. If we analyze the above definition of accounting, we can deduce and conclude that following activities are covered under this definition of the subject of accounting. These are the activities: identifying the transactions, measuring the transactions, recording the transactions, classifying the transactions, summarizing the transactions, analyzing the transactions, interpreting the transactions, and finally communicating the same. Before we actually discuss each activity, it becomes imperative for us to understand the concept of transaction itself. What do we actually mean by the word transaction? We may define the word transaction as the exchange of values between two parties. For example, if there is person A and there is person B. If person A wants to have a pen, he has rupees 10 and goes to person B, who is a bookseller, and purchases from him the pen by giving rupees 10. So when this transaction takes place, there is an exchange of value. Person A has rupees 10, it has a value, he parts with this value, gives it to person B, who is the bookseller, and in return he receives the value, that is the pen. Pen itself has a value. Also the bookseller receives the rupees 10, which we said has a value. So the two parties had a transaction, they exchanged the values. The values here included pen and rupees 10. So transaction is the exchange of values between two parties. Now the first item and the thing that is covered under the definition of accounting is identifying the transaction. So there are lots of transactions that can take place around the business. Since we are concerned with the financial activities, now talking about a word called business. Now we must first understand what business is all about. Business can be defined as any legal activity which is carried by any entity in order to earn profits. So this business that this activity is carried out can be carried out in various forms, and currently we have three main recognized forms of carrying out the business. First is the sole proprietorship form of business. Second is the partnership form of business. Third is the joint stock company form of business. We also have the fourth one. We'll talk about that in a little while. The first one, sole proprietorship form of business, is a form of business in which the business is owned by one single person. He owns the assets of the business, he owns the liabilities of the business, he shares the profits of the business, he also shares the losses of the business. Now, he also, in this, we have a concept of unlimited liability. That is, if he had started his business with 1 lakh rupees of his own capital, now he wants to expand the operations of his business. He doesn't have his own funds, he goes to any financial institution. This financial institution is external to his business. So he raised funds from them to the tune of rupees 1 lakh. So the total amount that he has invested in the business is rupees 2 lakh. Now, if he is not doing well, if his business is not doing well and he fails to pay to the bank, first he has to dispose of the assets of his business and pay to the bank. If those assets do not commensurate with the amount that he owes to the bank, then what he has to do, the claim will extend beyond his business property to his personal property. This is what we mean by unlimited liability. The second form of business is partnership form of business. Here the minimum number that can enter into this form of business is 2. So there are two people or more than two persons who have come together to start a business, and this business is governed by a specific act called Partnership Act 1913-2. In this business, There is a partnership deed which mentions about the terms and conditions of the business. That's how much the capital will be introduced in the business, what will be the profit sharing ratio, what will the terms and conditions of exiting the business, what will the terms and condition of introducing new partner into the business, and all these things. It also has a concept of unlimited liability. Now, the third form of business is the joint stock company form of business, which is quite different from the earlier two. This business is governed by the Companies Act 1956. Now we have the Companies Act 2013. Now, first we need to understand what company is. A company is any entity which is registered under Companies Act 2013. It has its own common seal. It can sue. It can be sued. It's a legal entity. It's a creation of law. It cannot die a natural death. It has to die a legal death through a specific procedure called liquidation proceedings. Now, after having understood the forms of business, now this business, either partnership, sole proprietorship of company form of business, operates in a specific environment. So, in the environment, as the human beings operate, as the human beings do operate in a specific environment, so does the business. So, around the business, number of transactions take place, which we discussed. They can be either financial or non-financial transactions. Since first, what the firm has to do, identify the transactions that affect the business. So these identified transactions can be both financial as well as non-financial transactions. Now, out of these transactions, the firm has to take up only financial transactions which affect the firm. Now, first part it is done identifying the transactions. Now we have identified it, they can be both financial and non-financial. Second is, out of these identified transactions, we have to see what are the transactions which can be measured in terms of money. That is what we mean by measuring the transactions, which means we'll be recording only those transactions in the books of accounts which are expressible and can be expressed in terms of money. The third activity is recording the transactions. Now, recording involves keeping record of the transactions in the books of accounts. We'll later talk about what is included in recording in a separate topic. Now, after we have recorded, these transactions have to be recorded as and when they take place. As and in a specific order, we mean to say. Now, after we have recorded the transactions on daily basis, the next step is classifying the transactions. There are certain transactions, or there are a number of transactions which are repetitive in nature, which are recurrent in nature, which repetitively take place in the business organization. Suppose if we take the example, if we have transaction A that has taken place, then we have transaction B, then transaction C. Now after transaction C, transaction A again takes place. Now we have transaction D, E, F, then again transaction A takes place. Now we have transaction G, H, I. Now after that we have again transaction A taking place. Now transaction A is a repetitive transaction. It is a recurrent transaction. And it will be difficult for us to locate this transaction by turning on the page and all these things. It will be a messy type of situation. So what we do, we simply classify the transactions, those transactions which have similar nature, similar characteristic and similar feature. We call this activity as classifying the transactions. Now the next step is summarizing the transactions. Summarizing the transactions is the process of putting the classified transactions in a specific format. Now we'll also talk about what summarizing the transactions include in the separate topic by the name accounting cycle. Here we must remember for time being, summarizing the transactions involves the process of putting the classified transactions in a specific format and having a summary of all the transactions that have taken place in the business in a particular financial year. After we have summarized the transactions, we need to now analyze the same. Now, analysis of the transactions, what do we first mean by analyzing the transactions? Analyzing is the process of establishing a relationship between various items. If we go by the summarizing the transactions, we can add a point over here. Summarization involves the preparation of financial statements. That's profit and loss account and balance sheet. Okay. It can make our job easier to understand what analyzing the transactions involves. Now, analyzing, as I said, involves establishing a relationship between various items. If we take an example, if a patient goes to his doctor, he is facing some problem, he is having some problem, so he first explains his problem to the doctor. After the doctor listens to his problem, then doctor tries to establish relationship between various things. So he tries to connect the dots and have some meaning out of those relationship. That's what we mean by analyzing the transactions. Here, what we simply do, we try to establish a relationship between the items of financial statements. That is, we establish a relationship between the item of profit and loss account and the item of profit and loss account itself. We try to establish the relationship between the item of profit and loss account and the balance sheet. And also, we try to establish a relationship between the item of balance sheet and the item of balance sheet itself. By this, we can have a very good amount of information after we have analyzed the transactions, after we have established the relationship. Now, once we have analyzed the analyzed transactions may not be even understandable for specific parties or interested parties who may be interested in knowing the financial statements. Now, once we have analyzed them, these analyzed transactions, they may not understand it properly. What we do, we simply interpret the transactions. Which transactions? Which we have analyzed. So interpreting means simply putting those analyzed transactions in a very simplistic form, in a very understandable form, in a very comprehensible form. After we are done with the interpretation of the transactions, same needs to be communicated to the interested parties, to the interested users of the information of the subject of accounting. So thank you very much for watching this video.